So, to the review from the previous lesson, we read a story about Johnny Appleseed, and then we listed off some words that kind of described him, like helpful, hardworking. And then we talked about what are some words that describe me. I think one of the words I wrote about me was reliable, um, determined, and kind. And I asked you guys to write some about you. So today we're going to read a story about a boy named Darian and Marshall. So I'm going to read the story and we're going to talk about it at the end. So this is the patch part 1. And in each unit, I believe we are going to have part 2, part 3, part 4. So this is the patch part 1. So we're going to be discussing Darian and Marshall's actions throughout doing positive action. So I'm going to go ahead and begin. Darian idolized his brother Marshall. When Marshall joined the high school basketball team, Darian would go to the local courts and try his best to keep up with him as he practiced. When Marshall got his letterman jacket for football, Darian cut his school initials out of an old shirt and pinned them to his coat so he could look just like his brother. He thought he wanted to be just like Marshall. That's why it hurt Darian so much when his parents divorced. His mom moved to a different city, and neither his mom or dad could afford enough money to take care of both sons in the same place. That meant not only were Darian's parents splitting up, but he and Marshall had to split up too. Marshall went to live with his mom. Darian went to live with his father. Darian and Marshall spent every other holiday with each other. For Thanksgiving, Marshall came to stay with Darian and their father. For Christmas, Darian went to stay with Marshall and their mother. Darian and Marshall were headed into the second year after their parents' divorce. Darian had been in this grade for a few months now, and Thanksgiving was coming up. Darian didn't really care about the holiday. All he cared about was hanging out with Marshall again. It seemed like it had been so long since they had seen each other. Darian was shocked when Marshall strode into their father's house smelling like cigarettes and punched him in the arm as he sneered, "What's up, punk?" "Nothing," Darian said quietly, rubbing his shoulder. Marshall plopped down in their father's chair and flicked on the TV. After a few minutes, Darian asked, "Hey, do you want to head down to the old courts and shoot some hoops?" "I'm doing what I want to be doing. Go play with your little friends," Marshall retorted without looking up from his show. Darian slunk out of the room and went to sit on his bed. The next day, Darian tried again. He wasn't going to let one day spoil the fun he and his brother could have. "Hey, Marshall," Darian yelled to his brother after breakfast. "Let's go toss a football around." Marshall put down the leftover slice of greasy pizza he was eating, grabbed the football lying in the corner by the front door, and put it on top of the bookshelf. Shoving Darian square in the chest, he huffed, "You wish. Leave me alone. What makes you think I want to play with this stupid kid anyway?" Darian fell backwards, knocking his elbow on the wall. "I don't think I like Marshall very much anymore," thought Darian. He was confused and hurt. His elbow was sore, but he was more hurt on the inside. That night, he got his coat out of his closet and ripped off the school initials he had pinned on it a few years back. Just seeing it in his closet made him remember who he used to think his brother was. On the day before Thanksgiving, Darian walked right past his older brother and went to meet some friends down the road to play basketball. He came back a few hours later, out of breath. Marshall could hear Darian and one of his friends laughing at something outside of the house. Darian bumped through the door a few minutes later, still laughing, his cheeks colored from running, and sweat dripping down his forehead, even though it was pretty chilly outside. He took off his coat and tossed it beside the chair where Marshall was sitting, watching TV as he ate potato chips. Marshall saw the pinholes on the right breast pocket where the school initials had been pinned just the day before. That night, Marshall knocked on Darian's bedroom door, saying, "Hey man, can I come in?" Darian opened the door without answering. Marshall sat on his little brother's bed with his head down. "Hey, So I just wanted to say that it's been kind of hard, man, living without you and Dad. Darian thought his older brother sounded like he might start crying. I mean, you act like life is so good here. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how to get back to being the me I want to be anymore. I mean, it's like I'm kind of jealous of how you are. Darian took his arm from under the covers and put his hand on his older brother's back. You just have to keep working on being who you want to be. Once you figure out who that is again. Marshall shook his head slowly. That can be a hard job sometimes. When did you get so smart, man? He chuckled slightly on the left the room. As Darian slept that night, Marshall took the stitches out of the patch on his new Letterman jacket. He went to the garage where he had seen the initial his little brother had thrown away the night before. Marshall picked the initials out of the trash and smoothed them out on the counter. When Darian came to breakfast the next morning, he saw 2 jackets with pins in them. His jacket had his brother's patch pinned to it. His brother now sported the initials that Darian cut out of that old shirt before their parents' divorce. I think this is one step closer to figuring me out again, Marshall said with a smile, hugging his little brother. Happy Thanksgiving, whispered Darian. So first of all, let me ask you guys, why was Marshall being so mean to Darian when he came home? When Marshall came to visit, did he have a positive self-concept? Remember, we said that when we do positive actions, we feel good about ourselves. And that's exactly how Marshall felt towards the end of the story. No matter how difficult a situation is, there's always a positive way to handle it. When we feel good about who we are and what we are doing and how we treat each other, we feel good about ourselves. We are happy and successful. So we're going to continue throughout Positive Action to read about Marshall and Darian and things they encounter and situations they are unsure how to handle. And we're going to talk about them and discuss them.